They had a Rosie O'Donnell look-alike contest down the street, and boy did that crowd turn ugly. Anyway, this is the Browning Maxus II. There's been a lot of discussion about the Browning Maxus II. This example has a 3-inch chamber. Browning's done a very, very good job with the overmolding. Soft cheek piece, extremely good grippy pistol grip. Very nice job on the forearm. You can really grip that. This is the, I think the 6th or the 7th Maxus that I've reviewed over the years. The fundamentals are the same active valve piston, and they've all been simple guns to take apart, put together. Rather than the quick release forearm with the Maxus II, they've gone with a more conventional forearm, with just the forearm nut. The reason for that? Well, they had a few problems with floppy forearms, and there was no ability to add an extended magazine, whether for competition or snow goose hunters. Anyway, that's taken care of. A few of the early models had rattly forearms. That's no longer the case. This is nice and tight. Nothing moves, nothing rattles. Browning triggers have not been the best. They've normally been sloppy, 6-pound triggers, something like that. This trigger is absolutely improved. Very little initial take-up. Fairly crisp for an autoloader. And rather than the 6 or 7 pound traditional Browning trigger, this one I think is about 4.5 pounds average break weight. So on this example anyway, big improvement on the trigger. One thing that has changed is probably due to the fairly elaborate overmolding, is the gun is heavier. This weighs 6.5 pounds. Historically, 3-inch Browning Maxus models have been more like 7. So for a lightweight, fun to carry upland gun, quail or pheasant, you might want more like a 6 3/4 pound gun, and there are a lot of them out there. They've done something a little wacky with the buttstock. It's not very attractive, so what's the reason for this extra blob of plastic? Well, they've done this with the Winchester Super X4. The idea is that you can take the gun to a gunsmith and they can cut off the plastic and shorten the length of pull. I think it would have been more elegant, certainly, if Browning just had blow molded a few shorter length of pull stocks, rather than say, hey, go to a gunsmith and grab a hacksaw and knock off some plastic. But that's what they did. That's the reason for this extension that you see here. That's a little bit unsightly. Historically, Brownings have not had extraordinarily long length of pulls anyway. 14 1/4, thereabouts. So you can see there's a lot of extra room here. Rather than the traditional Browning cardboard box, you do get a hard case, and you get 3 extended chokes. They appear to be carbon steel. I don't believe they're stainless. This one is marked modified. They're in Vector Plus. Browning did have a problem for several years with their shell elevator. Now, those that are familiar with the classic A5 know it's a nice machined hunk of steel. Well, these are stampings, and the early Browning Maxus models were very thin stampings and razor sharp. So it'd be pretty easy to cut your finger. So that's been improved. I don't think you're going to be shredding your finger, bleeding all over your gun like with some of the early Maxus models. They've also reprofiled the front of the trigger guard for speed loading. or for faster loading, if you want to load 3-4 shells at a time, that would again would be for competition or perhaps for snow goose hunting. If you want to load more than one shell. Let me grab some ammo. This happens to be Fiocchi Dove Loads, 1 ounce, 7.5 shot, 1250 feet per second. And these are extremely soft shooting loads. They're fast enough to cycle most autoloaders. So whether you go with the 1250 or a 1290 foot per second 1 ounce loads, 1 ounce load, most autoloaders will cycle them. Now for some reason there's a competition where people think that a 12 gauge that can cycle a 20 gauge load is better. I don't agree. It means your gun is really getting punished with heavier loads, particularly turkey loads or heavy tungsten super shot loads. You're really banging the heck out of your firearm. But to give you an idea of how well the Browning works with 1 ounce 1250 foot per second loads, first of all we'll do the speed loading. It's a 3-inch chamber, so it's not quite as smooth as a classic A5, but you can do it without cutting your thumb to ribbons. So I've always considered that a handy feature. And it also has a magazine cutoff on this side if you want to jack out your duck load, snap in a dove load. Out it goes. You can pop in another load that quick. So it's a nice feature and it's easy enough to operate. Oh, as far as cycling loads, let's pop another shell in and you'll be able to see these are 1 ounce 1250 foot per second loads. And let's check it out. So that is a good 7-foot ejection distance. Pretty aggressive, really. Maybe a little more than you want. But gun manufacturers, they listen. And they hear people bragging about how light a load their 12 gauge cycles. So I suspect they've opened up the gas ports a little bit more than has been historically accurate. So let's break a few clays and we'll continue on. I can tell you right now, this gun definitely shoots excessively high for me. Maybe not for you, but for me. Because if I'm holding a foot and a half underneath the clay, it breaks. But to cover the bird, I'm shooting over the bird every time. We'll do a few more, but that's what's going on here. Yeah, definitely have to hold beneath the clay to break it, so I don't like that. Maybe it's just this gun. I do have my quibbles. The plastic bead, the plastic center bead, of which I believe is not threaded, is just pressed in, completely obscures the front bead. I don't know if you can see that or not. So this is like the fat guy getting a shoe shine. You got to take the guy's word for it. So that is a problem, and that may be partly why this gun shoots so high for me. So I really should just pull this bead off. I don't know why they put worthless center beads on hunting guns anyway. But something to think about before you walk out the door with your Maxus II. Maybe it bothers you, maybe it doesn't. This is a 26-inch barrel. You can also get in a 28-inch barrel. So, personal preference on beads, but that is a problem. My main gripe, it's a beautifully finished gun. I'm happy about the trigger. I love the overmolding. Great job there. Extremely soft shooting. Now that the Remington V3 is no more, this takes the crown. A Remington V3, standard V3 synthetic model, which is a good word for plastic, it's about 7 1/4 pounds with a 26-inch barrel. This is 7 1/2, so it's a heavier gun. Brownings have always been softer shooting. It's got a good Packmeyer produced Inflex recoil pad. So it's a very soft shooting gun. People are going to like that. So what's my beef? There is really one thing about the Maxus II that really bothers me. It's one thing to have an enlarged trigger guard, but look at this. This is like a large loop carbine type trigger guard. You can put 3 fingers through it easy, or even 4 if you crunch your fingers up. So it's a massive trigger guard. Now the trigger guard alone isn't a problem, but this safety drives me nuts. Now it's okay in the duck blind, the goose pit, or shooting clays. You don't need safety if you're shooting clays. Your gun isn't loaded until you're up on the line anyway. But if I'm just carrying this gun, my knuckle is going to knock that safety off. Just like that. It's just exactly wrongly positioned. So my forefinger, if I'm grabbing the gun, off goes the safety. So chasing pheasants, that would absolutely drive me nuts if I'm just walking around and the safety goes off constantly. And it happens. I mean, you're climbing over things, the gun's being moved from hand to hand, but there's no way that you should be able to just off goes the safety like that. So I don't really understand it. Most Maxus models have had that problem for me. The best was actually a Maxus Sporting Clay model. That was a little different pistol grip design. But that's it tells you right where to grab your gun, and there it is one more time. Off it goes. So extremely easy to knock off the crossbolt safety inadvertently. And it may not be a problem for you. The Maxus has been around for a while. I think it gets even worse if you've got gloves on in cold weather. Just real easy to knock that safety off. I mean, the whole idea, whether it's behind the trigger guard or in front of the trigger guard, is use your forefinger and as you mount, take the bird. But you shouldn't have a safety that just wants to knock itself off constantly. Problem for me, and that is really the only thing about the Maxus that's a stopper for me, because why would I want a gun where I've got to worry about the safety constantly coming off inadvertently? I wouldn't. So, but other than that, there are definite improvements. Again, great job with the overmolding, improved trigger, comes with a hard case, comes with 3 extended chokes. It's a well-finished gun. The trigger improvement and the loading improvement without the sharp edge shell elevator, that's good. A lot of good things about this gun. It's just the safety position for me is a real problem. Otherwise, if that's not a problem for you, you can put it on your short list if you don't mind the 7 1/2 pound weight, which you may well not. Duck hunting or a goose blind, I mean, you've got the swivel studs built in, so if you're using a sling, Certainly weight isn't much of an issue at all as far as carrying the gun around. So I'll take a few more shots. I don't think I'll bother pulling off the center bead, since this gun's going back to Browning anyway. It's just not a shotgun I have to have, but it is simple to maintain. The active valve piston, they don't last forever, so if there's one wearing part, things always break at the worst time. If you're going to give hot loads, or particularly turkey loads, you might want to get an extra active valve piston, throw it in your range bag. It'll be a lifesaver, because the spring can break and does break, and there's really no warning. It may last you for 5 years, it may last you for 6 months. There's no way of telling. Very difficult to disassemble it and clean it. In a way, it's good because you don't have any loose parts. It's one integrated little system.